Stinkfist here, today with another video, this time comparing grading in TBC and Classic, finding some differences, looking at the similarities and stating some things. Some might say comparing these two is like comparing apples to oranges, and I would agree, they are both fruit. On a more serious note though, how different can an expansion be compared to its predecessor? Let's find out. Those who have experiences in Classic have surely grown to love, or most likely hate, one of the most fundamental aspects of raiding in Classic, the world buffs. The biggest complaint most people have against the world buff meta is just how taxing it is on your time and on your ability to play your character. To collect all the world buffs, my routine goes something like this. Go to Dire Mall and get the bus from there. Get summoned to a safe space above, but also inside Booty Bay to get Heart of Hakar buff. Take a portal to Orgrimmar, where I await Warchief's Blessing and Rallying Cry of the Dragon Slayer, and then, if I'm lucky, I can get summoned to Felwood and pick the flower. Or, if I'm lucky, I have to fly there and find one myself. All of that on the hopes I don't get ganked or dispelled along the way. And this is very dependent on other people correctly announcing and actually dropping the world buffs, which on my server is often Now, in actual fact, this could take up less than half an hour of in-game time, but in reality, it takes much more since you have to check the Discord for the drop times, coordinate with your guildies to summon and click and portal and whatnot, and you have to be on time for the busts themselves. And in reality, this takes a whole afternoon. You waste a whole afternoon not even playing the raid you are getting ready for. While they do provide a massive, and I do mean massive, increase in power level of your character, even that aspect is arguably a big flaw that trivializes its content to an incredible extent. On the other hand, we have the world buffs in TBC. The famous Hellfire Superiority that is awarded for your faction controlling 3 checkpoints in Hellfire Peninsula that gives your faction a 5% damage bonus in that zone and in that zone's instances, but not raids. The otherworldly Twin Spire Blessing that also provides a 5% damage bonus to the faction controlling a world objective in Zangamarsh that also doesn't work in raids. Oh, I know, the amazing Blessing of Okidon, which also... there's no raids in Okidon. Looks like world buffs are not a thing anymore. Shame, really. Psych! In the Raid of the Crusade, we have many consumables provided to us by alchemists. Flasks, elixirs, and potions. While in Classic, we have flasks, elixirs, and potions. So what's the difference? Well, my lovely friends, when I go to my raid as a tank, I drink so much alchemist-made creations that I actually feel the sweat of their hands from when they made the concoctions. Flask of the Titans, Elixir of Mungus, Elixir of the Giants, Elixir of Fortitude, Troll's Blood Elixir, Elixir of Superior Defense, and of course Arthas Tears. And that's not including all the lips, faps, stone shield potions I drink, and of course all the oils of immolation I lather myself up in. And I'm pretty sure I missed a few. In TBC there is a slightly different tune. The long-lasting alchemist buffs are now separated into two categories, Guardian and Battle Elixirs. You can only have one elixir of one type, and the flask counts as both. While potions still exist, they are nowhere near game-breaking as lips and faps are. So if we were to tank in TBC, I would probably need only a flask of fortification and some iron shield and some heroic potions. Now, there are of course other consumables, such as food and wizard oils, but those are fairly affordable and don't take up a lot of room. Of course, both versions of have them. Some raid purists will say that raiding in TBC absolutely requires you to get leatherworking and all the various drums available. But those are the same people that pop sappers on trash and molten core, so don't listen to them. You don't need the drums if you're a filthy casual.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Derivative. That I love. I absolutely love.
That's just the warrior.
I want it.
In our dear beloved classic, we have the raids that are colossal 40-man raid standard, and the smaller 20-man catch-up raids feel more like glorified dungeons, and there is also UBRS, which is essentially a dungeon for 10 people. In TBC on the other hand, the colossal raids are 25-man, and the smaller raids are 10-mans that actually feel like a solid raid. I still hold Karazhan and Zulaman in fond memories. Of course, dungeons are still 5-man, but we aren't talking about dungeons today. A thing of note is that 40-man raids do feel a bit more raidy, a bit bigger in scale and vastness, and the 40 of you guys really does feel like a whole lot of people in one place. It kinda shows that the raids were designed just for that, 40 people. And at that same time, coordinating even 5 was a challenge. But I'll spare you the usual excuses for classics shit. Now back to the composition. In classic, there are some synergies between the melee classes. Warriors and rogues want to be in the same group with the shaman and the hunter, while all the rest of the classes really don't care much. That's why the classics composition always looks something like this. The Crusades approach to this created an interesting state where each spec brings their own unique buff to the table, so variety is desired and much more care can be placed on optimizing compositions. In Classic, the typical composition has very little variety, and depending on how hard your guild is trying, it can support even less, since certain meme specs are just that, memes. There is little room for Boomkins, Shadow Priest and non-healer specs of Paladin and Shaman, while Warriors and Rogues and Mages carry the damage. In TBC, raids are just better. Since 25 people is less than 40, they expected it to be easier to manage, and thus they are slightly more challenging and yet rewarding at the same time. Also, the loot is pretty reasonable. Unlike Classic's 2 to 4 items for a 40 people boss, in TBC you get 3 to 5 items for 25 people. And with that point, we can segue nicely into the next segment.
Where did you get those clothes? At the toilet store?
Gearing and alts. As stated moments ago, in Classic, gear is rare. Some pieces are almost legendary, and even after a year of raiding, you cannot expect to have everything for your best in slot. On the other hand, TBC remedied this issue with a lot more loot for less people, so I would say it's less demanding for you to constantly raid with your main. Even role shifts are available, and you can actually expect to have your best after a few months of the same raid. There are also the tier tokens, which make gearing up tier gear much easier. The catch-up aspect in both games is pretty similar. However, TBC still offers more avenues to achieve your raid readiness. Both games have catch-up raids, Zul'Gurub and Ruins of Ankiraj for Classic, and Zulaman and Kairazan for TBC. And in both, you can choose to get some starting gear through PvP, though in Classic that gear is locked behind a ridiculous grind that doesn't improve since there are no seasons. In TBC, on the other hand, the PvP gear gets updated with each season and can be obtained both through Arena and Battlegrounds. But TBC adds another avenue here. There are Badge of Justice rewards farmed in heroic dungeons in the beginning, but later they can be acquired in other raids as well. The Badge of Justice vendor offers more and more items as content progresses. So for conclusion, I would say that we all witnessed how disappointing Classics raid were all the way until Nax, where apparently they got their shit together and made a challenging raid. No wonder then that in TBC you can expect a much smoother and richer raid experience, along with all of the perks of the expansion has to offer. Yes, a smooth and rich experience, just like hitting that subscribe button and maybe sharing this video if you have enjoyed my content. It really means a lot to me. Of course, thank you for watching and have a good one.